We are officially 3 weeks until the midterm elections, but already early voting underway in some states. And joining me now to discuss the latest polling is president of RMG Research and editor-at-large for Ballotpedia, Scott Rasmussen. Always great to see you, Scott. Welcome back here on the National Desk.
Great to see you, Jan, and 3 weeks to go. A lot can happen.
I know. We always talk about this. We think it's so close, but it's actually so far away when it comes to the polling world. I know you've been tracking the president's approval ratings since he has taken office. Your poll found 40% of voters strongly disapprove of how the president is doing. 15% somewhat disapprove. How has this number changed since he took office, and how does the numbers of past presidents, how do they compare to this?
Well, the numbers today are a mirror image of when the president took office. When President Biden was first elected, his approval ratings were in the mid to high 50s, and the disapproval was around 40%. Now, for the last year, we've seen his approval ratings hovering around 40%. And as you point out, the intensity is really strong. 40% who strongly disapprove. That's more than twice as many as who strongly approve of the job he's doing. The change followed a pattern very much like Barack Obama's. High ratings for about 6 months, slid down to a plateau. The difference, President Obama's ratings settled around 47%. President Biden's are settling around 41%.
When it comes to the issues, you asked voters which of the following is most important to you, and not surprising as we take a look at this. Inflation and crime take the top spot with a wide margin. 48% said inflation was the most important issue. Crime coming in second at 10%. Third was abortion at 9%. Least important was the January 6th hearings and the war in Ukraine. When you asked which party do you trust the most to handle these issues, what did you find?
Well, on the issues that are most of concern to voters, inflation and other economic issues, Republicans are trusted far more than Democrats. This is the issue of the midterms, and it's not that people have sat down and analyzed competing proposals. They've seen what has happened in the Biden administration. The Democrats are in charge right now. Inflation is at 40-year highs. They want to give the other team a chance.
And you also asked voters if they agree or disagree with the following statement, which I think is important because no matter how bad the president's ratings are, we know Congress's ratings can be equally as bad or even worse many times. What did you find when you asked them this question? No matter how bad something is, Congress can always make it worse.
73% of voters agree with that. Not really a shock. And, we can laugh about this because it is kind of funny. Politicians think that people are looking to them for leadership, and now the voters are saying you guys are going to make a bigger mistake. But what this really shows us is voters are skeptical of all big programs. They prefer incremental change. They don't want an Inflation Reduction Act that doesn't reduce inflation. They'd like to see some step-by-step efforts. Unfortunately, the egos of most political leaders don't like that step-by-step approach. They want to reshape things in their own image.
When it comes to the 2024 presidential election, because we always know this is a precursor, what we're going to see right now in the midterms, you found only 27% of people asked think that Donald Trump is very likely to run again, with 33% who say that he is somewhat likely to run again. As for Democrats, only 20% think President Biden will be very likely to run again, with just 31% who think somewhat likely. We're taking a look at this one now. This was with President Biden currently.
Right.
What's more interesting than this, though, Scott, very quickly, 59% of people believe that someone else will have a better chance of winning the Democratic nomination other than President Biden. So is this typical for a first-term president?
It's typical for a first-term president if his job approval ratings were at 40%. But, you got to keep this in perspective. President Biden is either the lowest approval rating for a president at this time in the modern era, or he's second lowest behind Donald Trump. We're in uncharted territory. And there is a lot of discussion about what might happen. Republicans and independents just dismiss the idea that Biden would run again or that he could possibly be a strong candidate. Democrats, they're still a little bit divided on it, but they're not enthusiastic.
Has your polling shown who could be a likely contender instead of Biden if Biden did not run?
We haven't asked about that. And the reason is if I had asked questions like this in 2005, nobody, or 2006, nobody would have picked Barack Obama. Nobody would have picked Donald Trump at this point in the cycle before 2016. So it's very early in the process. And And Jan, what happens is there will be a front runner in both parties. There will be a challenger, and running for president is a process. The way it turns out will depend who catches fire with the voters in the 2024 primary season.
And Scott, very quickly, I want to shift to Florida right now because the numbers show Governor Ron DeSantis still wildly popular in the state, especially when you look at these numbers. You asked if the election for governor were held today, for whom would you vote? 52% say they would vote for Republican Ron DeSantis, and just 42% say Democrat Charlie Crist. For Florida voters, what has made DeSantis so popular, and how does that translate to what matters to voters in the rest of the country?
Well, you have to understand that DeSantis' popularity was embedded 2 years ago. When the pandemic was beginning, Florida made a decision, DeSantis made a decision to open as quickly as possible, to open schools as quickly as possible, to open public facilities, to open businesses. More than 7 out of 10 voters approve of those actions that he took. Other states like New York and California went in the other direction. So this was a big contrast, and that's the reason DeSantis is so popular right now in Florida. In terms of the rest of the country, I think it gives us a hint that there's still a hangover from all those pandemic restrictions, but it's not directly applicable to the rest of the nation.
Scott Rasmussen, always great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jan.